So I have this 2015 MacBook Pro, and I rebuilt it out of spare parts. This chassis had been water damaged. The screen shows some aspects of it under a white screen. You can see some artifacts um, of that liquid damage. The biggest problem with the screen is actually that there's a sensor in the camera assembly. It might be for ambient light, but because that sensor has been damaged, it basically will fail its power on tests, and the fans will spin at maximum capacity. The kernel task will take up all of the available CPU percentage, and the machine's basically not usable under those circumstances. So I've unplugged the camera assembly from the motherboard, and that basically means the machine is fully functional without the camera and without that ambient light sensor. Um, the other thing that is affecting this top case assembly is sticky feeling keys. Every key on this keyboard actually works properly, which is somewhat rare for a liquid damaged keyboard. But the feeling of pressing through, and you can even hear maybe the sort of crunchy feeling that the keys exhibit, is just a remnant of that liquid being present. Probably wasn't water, it was probably something additional. The display assembly was actually from a different liquid damage event on a different chassis where it was left outside for a couple of days and was exposed to dew and maybe even sprinklers. The rest of that computer actually survived, and I've transported the screen to a different model here to make that model actually fully functional. I'll show that in a little bit. This model, though, was non-functional until I gave it a motherboard that was actually functional from an eBay auction. And it's actually a 2.8 gigahertz with the AMD Radeon GPU in it. So it's a full spec configuration, but it has these remaining problems with the screen, with the keyboard, and also with the speakers, at least one speaker. If I open up an audio file here, something with a pretty good fidelity. Actually gonna pan the audio hard left and hard right using the computer's sound settings so that we don't have any interference from the other channel while it's playing. So the right channel is certainly problematic. The left channel might be fine. It sounds pretty clean. I do want to get sort of a baseline reading of the clarity and loudness of the channel compared to a known good machine, just because since the right channel and the keyboard were obviously damaged by water, I want to make sure the left speaker is actually fully intact and not just pretty good. Since I have another machine of that same generation, 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro, I'm going to compare it to that. I do want to make sure that I have some constants set so that we're not mixing variables here. I'm going to set the system sound to absolute maximum volume. That will actually tend to distort the audio, but it will give me a good idea of the total volume. I'm going to also make sure to hold the microphone at about the same distance on both machines so that we get an accurate decibel rating from both machines. Even though the sound is actually clear on both speakers on this one, I want to give it a perfect like-for-like comparison. My sound volume is set to maximum, and I'm going to pan it hard left to give it the same chance that only the left speaker on the suspect model would be playing. I'm going to end the recording now and actually look at the footage that I've pulled from both of these models and do sort of a split test back and forth, and we'll see if there's any apparent difference between the left side of the known good machine and the left side of the machine which has water damage on it. And we'll see if both speakers need to be replaced or just the right-hand side where definitely there are problems. So while it did initially seem like just the right channel was bad, it also seems like the left channel doesn't perform quite as well as the left channel on a healthy machine. There is a little bit of rattle in the mid to high end range. It might just be debris on the surface of the cone, and we'll have to take a look visually when we get into the machine to see if that could resolve the problem. Otherwise, I will just replace both speakers. I have both replacements, but that also gives us a baseline for the replacements. They're used. They're from another machine that was a donor and probably are going to be fine, but it's good to know that we have a baseline to compare to. So let's go ahead and shut this machine down so that we can take it apart and take the speakers out and replace them. Okay, so the speakers are right here and right here. Let me get the replacements out. Here are the two replacement speakers. Let's see, both of them are a tweeter and a woofer. A little debris on this one. See if just a quick blow that dust away. And it looks like that's what it was. Just a little bit of dust on the cones there. Let's go ahead and remove the speakers from the chassis here. We will have to remove the logic board in this case. This won't hurt to remove these speakers screws here because that's going to happen anyway. But let's go ahead and start removing this logic board as well. And that's that disconnected camera board. If I connected that, there would be problems with this computer operating correctly. So I will leave that disconnected before and after. This board here is the left I/O board, and that's actually going to have to come out as well because this speaker is entirely behind that. So we will have to remove both sides of this. Look very gently, checking for any connections or otherwise snags. There's a lot of things that this can catch on the way out. Okay. And really, we don't need to go much further than that. There's one more screw under here, each speaker. There's the left channel. And this one has a cable that's actually glued down to the bottom of that keyboard pad. So we'll just have to reroute that similarly here, right under that battery connection terminal, just like so. And this one's not so adhesive anymore, so might need a little training to stay there. Okay, and this can come back down here. I want to sort of slot into this side here. Just kind of grab each one of these connectors that wants to fall underneath the board and pull it out and around the edge. Just like that. I always sort of feel when these pressure connectors are in the right slot, they do have a very soft snap as they approach their correct angle. Don't try to mash them. If they don't feel like they're going in, it's not quite aligned. And again, I'm actually going to insert that one, even though it's lined up. We're going to leave that out because that display assembly is defective, and that plugging that in would cause problems for the SMC on this machine. Okay, let's start this up here and see if everything's still working correctly and what our sound is like. Well, no rattling. That's great. It's hard to judge based on the startup sound, but it can always sound a little underwhelming. I'm going to pan back to center for the second here, and then let's pull up that same track from before. My initial impressions are that sounds a lot better. I don't hear any rattling on either side of the channels. I'm going to do the same thing as I did before, except this time I'm going to leave both computers panned directly in center, so we get stereo from both. We're presuming both sets of speakers are good on both sides, but that'll give us a good comparison between what I would have considered known good set of speakers on the 2015 MacBook Pro 15-inch and these replacement set, which were used and could have any amount of previous use on them. But I'll do that right now. Well, those are definitely within spitting range of each other now. There might still be a slight sharpness to this one, but I'm not sure how well qualified these speakers were against each other anyway in the factory. They're both certainly acceptable to consider as good speakers. I might slightly prefer this one, but that's anecdotal. That is a successful repair of the speakers. That's the replacement procedure for speakers in a 2015 MacBook Pro. The model range from 2012 to 2015 is about the same. The 2012 model year in the 15-inch variety had two completely different models. One was the legacy unibody with the CD drive, and this is the Retina, which in that year they were both offered, but from 2013 to 15 there was only this model in 15-inch. But that will be the replacement procedure for the speakers. In the future we'll get to figuring out how to make the keyboard less clicky and sticky feeling as you type on it. Again, because the keyboard is actually fully functional, that won't be anything more than a really deep intensive cleaning of the keycaps. But that will do it for this video.